Good afternoon once again. How are you today? I am Dr. Rosalie P. Saycon of Lala National High School, Division of Lanao del Norte, your facilitator for today's webinar on qualitative action research design. Let us thankful to our Almighty God for this opportunity that He has given to us to learn new things and relearn this action research focusing on the interview as a method of collecting the data. Today, we will continue our discussion on action research focusing on interview as one of the method in gathering data. We will be looking at the different types of interview, either individual or group, and face-to-face or a distance through the use of social media or telephone, as well as the various level of organization, like for example, either structured, semi-structured, and unstructured. But before that one, let us know first our objectives for this webinar session. At the end of the session, you as a teachers, you are going to or you should be able to 1. Describe interview method as means of collecting data for action research. Formulate interview questions for data collection and identify ethical consideration in conducting interviews. But before the discussion proper, allow me first to introduce our pre-discussion activity. So I will give you 5 minutes to discuss or to lesson about. Hello, good afternoon po, Mr. Abuel. I am the class advisor of your daughter, Barbie. As her advisor, I am curious about why Barbie has been absent from school for the past few days. I hope it is okay for you to ask you a few questions. It should take us only about 30 minutes. Be assured that whatever you say to me will be kept confidential.
Good afternoon din po, Mrs. Cruz. Yes, come in. Please sit down. Thank you for coming. Yes, Barbie has been absent for the past week.
Thank you po. How many children do you have po?
Barbie is the older one of my 2 children. The younger one is only 1 year old and is sleeping inside.
Oh, I see. Is Barbie around?
No, I sent her on an errand at the nearby sari-sari store to get some things we need.
I understand. Barbie's a bright child, but I worry about her grades. I wonder if you have seen her report card on the past grading period.
Yes, I know she is a smart girl, and yes, I did see her report card. I actually feel sad about her grades, and now she has been absent from class because, as we can see, I am unable to walk.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. May I know what happened?
I had an accident about 3 months ago. I fell from a vehicle and injured my right leg, so now I am still unable to walk. My wife works in the field most of the day, so Barbie is forced to help me whenever she can. The previous weeks, my sister-in-law, who lives in the next street, has been helping me during the day. Barbie just takes over as soon as she gets home. Lately, though, my sister-in-law has been sick, so Barbie has been my only help. Last week, it was particularly difficult, so I asked her to skip school to help me instead. She has been doing most of the household chores and has been taking care of her younger brother.
Now I get the picture. Barbie has been absent from the class because she had to care of you. How much longer do you think Barbie will be absent from the class?
Oh, I can ask my wife to try to find a relative who can accompany me next week so that Barbie can go back to attending school. I can already manage to be on my own part of the day. I will make sure that Barbie goes back to class on Monday. Has she missed a lot of her lessons?
Only a few. So that is an example of the script between the respondents and the researcher. So now let us have the process question. So what is the script all about? How many respondents were there? Who was the respondent? How did the researcher conduct the interview? What information did the researcher need? What went well during the interview? What part do you think needs to be improved? What information was collected by the researcher? Was there numerical information? What was the numerical information then? What qualitative information did the researcher obtain? Another, do you think the researcher would have gotten the information he needed if just she sent a questionnaire to the respondent, or if she simply observed the student? Why? What made the interview a good way of collecting the information needed? So those are the process questions out from the interview script that we read a while ago. Okay, now let's have the understanding the purpose of the interview. Why interview is very important in a qualitative action research design. Interviewing is a method of collecting information from the respondent or respondents by asking questions. It is used if the data are required to answer the action research question. This can be obtained only through verbal conversation with the respondents or respondents. Example, an interviews are effective when obtaining the story behind the student's experience or experiences. Sometimes we may want to know more about how or why a student answered a test, a rating scale, for example, or a questionnaire in a particular way. Now, let's come have the types of interviews which is needed as a means of data collection in qualitative action research. The first type is that interviews according to the number of interviewees. So we have two classifications here under this type. So first we have individual interview. So in individual interview, when one person is interviewed at any one time. So only one at a time. In the script of an interview, read for the pre-discussion activity. There was only one respondent. That is an example of individual interview. Another classification of the interviews according to the number of interviewees is that focus group discussions or the FGD. So the FGD takes place when several individuals are interviewed at the same time, or simply referred as focus group. So meaning to say, a group of people or a group of person being interviewed at a time. Okay. The next type of interview is interviews according to structure. So we have three classification of this type. The first one, we have structured interview. So when the structured interview takes place? So when the action researcher has a list of questions already prepared, the questions are presented to all interviewees and are asked consecutively. So meaning to say, it is an all-out given question. The second classification of the second type, which is interview according to structure, is the semi-structured interview. This classification takes place when the action researcher is already have the questions or key points that can be raised in different order depending on the responses of the interviewees. So when you say semi-structured interview, the questions that might asked by the interview will not presented to the respondents. Maybe it has only one or two questions, and then there will be approving questions in order for the researcher to get a substantial data. The last classification of interview according to structure is the unstructured interview. So unstructured interview takes place when one question is asked and succeeding questions depending on the initial response of the interviewee. Sometimes, unstructured interview referred to as the informal conversation interview because this type of interview has no predetermined questions to be asked in a sequence. So it is a come what may questions. Anything goes in this type of question. The third types of interview is interviews according to the mode of conduct. Okay, the first one, under this one, we have the face-to-face interview. When the interview is conducted in person, this type of interview requires time for setting up an appointment with respondents and meeting with them. So there will be an appointment between the researcher and the respondents. Another also, under this third type of interview, according to the mode, is the distant interview. When you say a distant interview, takes place when meeting face-to-face with the respondents is not possible, and the interview has to be mediated by technology or conducted using a telephone or the internet, example, via Skype. So, or nowadays, we are going to have the video call on the online business, ba? So that is an example of distant interview. Okay, so how to prepare interview questions? Okay, the first one, we have an open-ended interview question. So when you see an open-ended interview question, example in a what question? So in what way or ways do student organizations help individual student develop as a person? So that is one of the example of the interview question. We have also closed-ended questions. So in the open-ended questions, the respondents has a choice to answer the questions. Either it is a short sentence or either it is a long sentence. It depends upon the respondents, how she or he answer the question. Another also, we have the closed-ended questions. Example of a question. How important do you believe is homework for learning? So there is a choices given by the respondent. So an example of the choices given on that particular question are very important, important, not so important, and not important. So meaning, out of that choices, the respondents could choose only one possible response or answer. So that is a closed-ended questions without further discussion, without further justification. Okay, there are 6 kinds of questions that action researchers can ask during the interview process. 1. Background or the demographic information about a person characteristics of the respondents. So when you see demographic, an example about the name, the age, the address, the year level. So that is an example of demographic. Another also is the behavior. So what a person has done, is doing, or will do. An example of this one, okay, is she graduated from a particular course? What is her feeling now? Parents' occupation of the respondents. So that is an example of what a person has done. Another also is feelings. Feelings refers to the sentiments or emotional states. An example of this one, the interviewees sometimes respond with a thing. So in this kind of type of research question, sometimes respondents are very hesitant to answer this one because it involves their feelings. That is why they may answer first, I think, or maybe. Another is knowledge. Knowledge, it talks about the facts about the topic. So it is all about the prior knowledge of the respondents to a particular situation or to a particular knowledge. Next one, we have the opinions, or values. It talks about what a person think about a topic. Maybe she or he likes the topic or dislike the topic. So if a person or if the respondents like the topic, he or she has a lot of answers, isn't it? But if the respondents dislike the topic, so he or she answers only a minimal way. Okay, number 6, sensory. What respondents have seen, touched, heard, tested, or smelled. In this kind of interview questions, especially if the topic is confidential and the respondents would not like to hear about. So he has a hesitation about on answering that question. So let us careful on this kind of research question as a researcher. Okay, how to arrange interview questions. Okay, the first one we have ask about facts first. What is your name? Before asking about controversial matters such as feelings and conclusion. So, in the discussion a while ago, the first question is about the background of the respondents or the demographic. Maybe that is the first and foremost introductory statement of the researcher. Another also interview questions in arranging, distribute fact-based questions throughout the interview to avoid becoming monotonous. So before you're going to ask the main question, maybe you can give the prior knowledge, a neutral knowledge, or a fact-based questions which is based on the real life situation, so that our topic discussion will be not a monotonous one. Okay, the next one we have questions should be asked one at a time. So we are going to ask question only one question at a time, not 2, 3, or 4 questions at a time, one by one only. Okay, 4, pose questions about the present before the past or the future. So meaning to say, let us try to consider the emotions, the feeling, or the condition of the respondents at the moment when we do the interview. So if the question talks about the past of the respondents, let us pause for a moment. Let us talk about first, is it okay for you to ask this question? Okay, like that way. Okay, number 5. End the interview with one last question that permits respondents to share some other questions that might wish to add. So usually, what I did in my research is that there will be a concluding statement. This concluding statement, this permits the respondents to share some other information. Maybe he might add the responses out from the previous question that you given to him or her. Okay, what are the words should be used in the interview questions? Questions should be as much as possible neutral. When you say neutral, it is between the researcher and the respondent only. We are not going to use the words which tackle about the other people. Okay, another question should be worded clearly. Simple words is best as not complex words. So those words which can be easily understood by the respondents should be included. Do not use those vague words that which is condensed to answer. Another also is be careful when asking why questions. So if the respondents would not like to widen or to prolong or to add her or his responses, then let us respect. Okay. What are the ethical considerations during the interview process? First, we have the permissions interviews. So what are the permission interviews? So in a classroom setting or in a school setting, of course, proposal of your research, action research is very important. Okay. Then another also is letter permission of the principal, the class advisor, and then of course the parents and other concerned. Another also is confidentiality. The teacher researcher is responsible for ensuring the confidentiality of the data collected. So after having or knowing those data of the respondents, keep that one in your heart and in your mind. Do not share it to other people. Okay. So any questions so far with regards to the ethical consideration when we are going to conduct the interview question to our respondents, to our possible respondents? If there is none, then let us have the application. This application, you can take home this one and then prepare for the next session, and this will be tomorrow. Okay. Self-check. On interview method, you are going to recall the different types of interview and describe each one using table below. Then write one or two tips for ethical concern or issue that should be taken into consideration for each type of interview. Okay, we have here the table. It is composed of 3 columns. The first column, we have the types of interview. So we have 3 types of interview according to structure, according to mode, according to type of questions. Okay, in the second column of your table, there is what we call as the description ethical. So in the description ethical, maybe you can have the parents' consent, the proposal of your action research, and the third column we have the issues or the issue or issues and tips. So this is the way how are you going to answer the take-home application. Okay, another as a practice in your home, and you are going to practice your interviewing skills by conducting a 10 minutes interview with a student, parent, administrator, or fellow teacher on any topic of your choice. Be sure to bring your interview questions and notes in the next webinar session that you have, and that will be tomorrow. Okay, that's all for this session. Thank you and good luck to your homeroom application. Thank you.